Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over the build for the best wizard version of the Tal Rasha's Firebird Frozen Orb build. This is going to utilize the new PTR right now with the new Firebirds set. So just as a heads up, this is patch 2.7, which will be season 23. Currently it's not out yet, but you guys are seeing gameplay of the new Firebird set. I have to first off show this because in the Diablo 3 planner, the Firebirds is on the old version. We're going to be looking at the new gameplay, which you guys are seeing in the background of the new updated Firebirds, which is actually going to be a little bit stronger. It has completely different effects. So essentially is going to be a new build. Now, just as a heads up, this build might not be the easiest build to play because it requires a lot of management of multiple different skills being able to be active at multiple times. I do have another build that will be much easier that will still be using the new version of Firebirds, and I will also pin that in the comment section below just because this build is quite complex, but don't worry, I will show you exactly how to play it. So first off, I want to go over the new Firebird set and what it does. You will only be using the 4-piece bonus, so it's going to be 3 plus the Royal Ring of Grandeur. So first off, just keep in mind that PTR, things can indeed change, and if there is an update, I will let you guys know. If you guys are new here and you want to be up to date with the latest Diablo stuff, hit subscribe, turn that bell, and you'll definitely see more very soon. But I just have to mention that this is on the PTR, so things can definitely change, and I'll update you guys ASAP if things do change. But anyways, currently on the PTR, the Firebird set is way crazy buffed. So with the 2-piece bonus, Disintegrate ignites enemies, causing them to take 3000% weapon damage per second until they die, and then when you die, a meteor falls down and revives you. It has a 60-second cooldown. That's not really super important other than Disintegrate ignites. And then with the 4-piece bonus, you gain 80% damage reduction and 4000% increased damage while Ignite is applied to a target. Casting Disintegrate adds combustion stacks that reduce the cooldown of Teleport by 2% per stack, and that can stack up to 50 times. Obviously, getting a huge cooldown reduction on Teleport is quite nice. Now, you won't be really using it for the Teleport or the combustion stacks. We just want it for that 4000% increased damage and that damage reduction. So pretty much how the build works, and I'll go over first off kind of how it is played, as there are multiple different ways to play it depending on what you want to go ahead and equip. So first off, right out of the gate, let's go over the skills. So Black Hole, you want absolute 0, and there are multiple different ways to play it. This is going to be the more meta one. This has cleared GR 150 solo with tons and tons of players actually running the exact same build. I'm just doing speed 100s here in the background for gameplay. But Black Hole Absolute 0 is going to give you a massive amount of damage. There are some other people that are utilizing another skill instead of that, which can be the Magic Weapon with Deflection to give you some damage reduction, or you can run Storm Armor with the Power of the Storm, as well as Halo of Karini. So those are where some builds will differ, but pretty much if you want the min-maxing, which you guys are seeing in the background here, you definitely want Black Hole Absolute 0, just more cold damage. Then you have Magic Weapon, Deflection, just for extra survivability. Then we have Electrocute. Now, there are people running Chain Lightning, but I think overall the better choice is Shock Pulse. Again, this is where some builds may differ here. It depends on where the enemies are positioned. It really doesn't matter that much, to be honest, but the Piercing Orb is going to be more common for most builds. The reason why is because with Elemental Exposure, you're basically going to get extra damage. Again, if the enemies are kind of side by side, sometimes it's too hard to hit them with the one orb. Again, it really doesn't matter too much. It's really just to go ahead and activate the effect of your secondary offhand, which is going to increase the damage of your arcane orb. So yeah, it doesn't really matter too much which one you choose. And then with Teleport, we want Calamity. This is going to activate the arcane damage for our Tal Rasha's set bonus. And then it will also stun enemies, so it can be definitely useful for that as well. And then obviously Arcane Orb, Frozen Orb, so this is what's going to make it do massive amount of damage, as Frozen Orb just has the best scaling in that department. And then we have to have Disintegrate, and then we're going to run Convergence for our rune, so we're going to have a wider width of the beam so we can hit more targets. We only technically need to hit one target. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to hit a target that's behind me, and I just don't kill that target just so something is ignited, because the target that is ignited isn't going to be the one that takes the extra bonus that you get with the 4-piece Firebird set. Just anything needs to be on fire. So just something needs to be ignited. It doesn't have to be the monster that you're attacking. So that is something important to mention with the playstyle of this build. Now, going over the passives, there's only one that you can really swap in and out, but pretty much every single wizard build will be playing Galvanizing Ward. This is nothing new. Then we have Elemental Exposure because you're going to be utilizing Tal Rasha, so you get the max bonus with that. And then Power Hungry is on a majority of builds, as well as Illusionist. This allows you to move a little bit faster, and if you're in a situation where you take a certain amount of damage, you'll be able to go ahead and reset the cooldown of your teleport. So it's kind of nice, and on top of that, that does apply Elemental Exposure, so that's more damage at the end of the day as well. But technically, Illusionist and Power Hungry, these could be swapped in and out for a lot of different builds. Heck, you can even argue Elemental Exposure could be swapped out. Some people are also using Prodigy, but overall, I would say this is what I would recommend. The last one is kind of up for whatever you need. If you need more survivability, play with whatever you want. But inside of the queue, we got Wizard Spike. You could technically run it if you have a really bad unstable scepter, like swap these in and out. But the Wizard Spike will attack very fast, which is something nice because it is a dagger, so keep that in mind as well, which could be even better to proc Wizard Spike even more. So this got a buff more recently where Arcane Orb will deal a massive amount of extra bonus damage, because before it would only use the Frozen Orb, and that Frozen Orb did not scale with your actual Frozen Orb, but it now does, and on top of that, you get massive amount of bonus damage. And then you have the Shame of Delzir. This is just a belt that will make it so your signature spell will attack faster, and that will proc your Triumvirate, which is the offhand that's going to make it so every single time you activate a signature spell, you will then increase the damage of Arcane Orb. One thing to note that's really important with this is this does not need to hit a target in order for this to activate. So basically you can shoot it into nothing and you will still get those stacks. So that's nice with the Shame of Delzir. And then the Royal Ring of Grandeur, Unity, Convention of Elements. You can swap any of these in and out. Also, Halo of Karini is another option if you want some more survivability. This is a really great option, as sometimes when something's not burning, you're just going to take a massive amount of damage because you don't have that 80% damage reduction from the new Firebird's bonus. So this can definitely help out if you want to swap out like Unity, Convention of Elements. Again, choose what you want to swap in and out depending on what you want to do. But for the best builds that are pushing the highest, you definitely want to go ahead and actually drop that for the massive amount of extra bonus damage that you'll be stacking with Absolute Zero, because this technically has no max damage on the bonus, although it only lasts 10 seconds. And if you try to overlap it, it'll overwrite the current number. So basically with Black Hole, you will see that there's a bunch of numbers under the actual skill. That's how much bonus cold damage you get. If you can get a huge group, you can get an insane amount of damage, and you really want to try to time when you are on the correct rotation on your Convention of Elements. Basically, after Arcane is going to be your big damage window for this build as we are playing cold. So in terms of what we're looking for on the pieces of gear, let's go ahead and go over that. So you're looking for pretty much the same things that you would want on a lot of Diablo builds, except for cooldown reduction here. So crit hit chance, and then bonus to Arcane Orb damage. That's going to be on our helm and our boots. If you can get it on your offhand, that can be great as well, but it's just so hard to roll these things to be perfect on every single thing. But yeah, instead of where it says like Twister damage, you would want like, here, let's just do this real quick. We want it to say bonus on Arcane Orb. There is another Twister build, which I will link down below. I actually just swapped some of the stuff from that one. But yeah, you want Arcane Orb damage, but don't worry if you don't get everything perfect on the offhand, as it's just a nightmare to roll everything. But basically you want the bonus orb damage, helm, and boots. And then for next piece, the shoulders, area damage where you can get it can be quite great, as well as Frozen Orb just has a massive like hitbox. It's insane. But you can also get life. You can also get resource cost reduction if you want to. But I actually don't like getting a resource cost reduction because I want to make sure that I'm activating my primary skill as often as possible so I don't drop this. It just helps me kind of maintain it. That way it says I'm out of mana or whatever resource, and then it just makes it so I have to use it, if that makes any sense. But for the gem in the helm, we can actually run the life gem, or we can run cooldown reduction. It doesn't really matter what you choose in this build. You don't need cooldown, but it does technically help out with Absolute Zero and I guess teleport, but pretty much you don't really need cooldown in this build. So I opted to run a Amethyst in the helm. But yeah, you can get extra life instead on the shoulders instead of like some of the other stats, because you don't need resource cost reduction on every single piece of gear. But if you do get it, it's okay. For the amulet, we want to have that cold crit hit chance, crit hit damage. It's quite rare to roll everything perfect on it. So instead of the cold skill damage, if you get intelligence in the very beginning, that's totally fine too. It's just for those people that want to min-max. Now on the chest piece, we do definitely want to run Tal Rasha's, because we're running 3-piece Firebird and the 6-piece of Tal Rasha over here. Sometimes you can swap things in and out. Like if you want to run the Tal Rasha gloves instead of the Firebirds, that's fine too. And if you want to swap like the Firebird's pants for the Tal Rasha's, it doesn't matter. But the thing that does matter is the Tal Rasha's armor. The reason why is it grants us extra attack speed. Now for the gems, you can see it's all rainbow over here. You can literally run whatever gems that you want in terms of the pieces of gear. If you want more damage, obviously go for intelligence. If you want more survivability, dex or strength, doesn't really matter. For the gloves, we want to have main stat is okay, but you can also get attack speed, you know, crit chance, crit hit damage, area damage. All those stats are great overall for that. For the belt, nothing too special, just a bunch of defensive stats. You don't want to get bonus damage to like shock pulse or electrocute, whatever primary skill that you want to use. Don't worry about that. You don't need that at all. We want the Ash Blood Bracers. We want cold damage, we want crit hit chance, and then main stat. This just helps us out with our resource with the magic weapon deflection. That just helps out with survivability at the end of the day. And then conventional elements, again, you can run Unity, whatever one in the right area, but crit chance, crit hit damage, area damage is what you want on majority of your rings if you can get it, but that can be kind of difficult as Unity doesn't let you roll everything perfectly. And then on top of that, neither does Royal Ring of Grandeur because it always rolls with attack speed. But ideally, you want to put conventional elements equipped because it always gives you that chance for that crit hit chance. But next up, we got the gems inside of the jewelry over here. So the Bane of the Trap, because we are going to be running cold anyways. And then we have the Zay's Stone of Vengeance. And on top of that, just like most of the builds that are pushing for the highest potential, Bane of the Stricken is what you want. And then for the pants, nothing particular that's important to mention. If you can get Int Vitality armor, that's really great, but you don't need any like bonus damage to like, again, your primary skills. For our weapon over here, we try to get attack speed if we can, because the more times we are able to attack with all of our abilities, that's more procs potentially with the wizard spike, so that can be kind of nice. You just want to make sure that the secondary on this tries to roll as high as possible. If this rolls really bad and you have a really good wizard spike, you can go ahead and swap those in and out, because the attacks per second can be better technically on wizard spike, especially if you roll attack speed, and that will just proc a lot of your other abilities to be a little bit faster. So it can be okay, but ideally you'll hit way harder with Unstable Scepter. But in terms of the boots, nothing too special with this. Again, just get that arcane orb damage on that. And then for our offhand, what we could try to get, like one stat that I would say is a little bit better than others. Obviously, you want your crit hit chance on your offhand, but also critical hits granting arcane power can be nice as well. Even though, like I mentioned before, you don't need to get resource cost reduction on everything. Just that one specifically really helps out with being able to spam your frozen orb as often as possible. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for what I would consider like the most meta build. Now I want to go into what you can swap in and out if you would like to. So if you want to, there are some other variations of this. Like I mentioned before, you can swap out whatever other passive that you want, but I recommend Illusionist, Exposure, and the Galvanizing Ward. But if you want to, you can run the magic weapon with deflection, which is in the other build. But for even more survivability, you would run Storm Armor, Power of the Storm. This will also help you out with resource, as sometimes when you're just starting out, you don't have those Paragon points to go ahead and slam into your arcane power. So this can really help out with that. And on top of that, if you run Halo of Karini, you get another 80% damage reduction, which really helps out, especially when you don't have all your pieces of gear to be ancient. I actually really recommend you guys, if you guys are hopping into season 23 or just starting out trying this out on the PTR, the build definitely feels squishy, and the reason why is because you're not getting that Disintegrate Ignite proc. Like when I was first trying out this build, I was like, how are people doing 150s with this? It's because you really need to make sure this is active at all times. But if you're kind of lazy and you just want to try to do like 100 pluses, you can easily do 100 plus with just running Halo of Karini, and that will give you a huge amount of damage reduction. And you can swap this out for, let's say, like Unity, or if you really want to push for more survivability, you can run Unity and the Halo of Karini, and then just drop conventional elements. That way you don't have to wait for the cycle, as I know a lot of people don't like to wait, especially if they're, you know, just doing like fast speed 100, 120s, 130s. But if you want to push max, yeah, you got to have that extra damage. And then if you want more damage, yeah, you can throw in your topazes in every single pieces of your gear. Another thing is, because of resource costs, especially in the lower GRs, you can also run the topaz and the helm, which will reduce the resource cost. And again, you can throw in a diamond if you want, which will help out with your teleport as well as your absolute zero if you decide to play it. But those are only the small little variations that you would see in both builds, which I'll link the D3 planner down below. But keep in mind, the D3 planner won't have the new Firebirds. It actually reads the old one. It won't have the newer stats. But that's going to go ahead and wrap things up for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you guys want to see the Twister version that's way easier to play, it's not as good, obviously, because it's not the most meta, but it is definitely fun, and it still uses the new Tal Rasha Firebirds combo, and I will also link that down below in case if you guys want to check that out. But if you're new here and you want to see more Diablo content in the future, and like I said, because this is the PTR, things, of course, are subject to change, and I'll update you guys if there is a change in the future. But thanks for watching, guys, and also I'll pin down below the Necromancer build. As the Necromancer build for next season, it is probably going to be taking a nerf, but it is so cool. Definitely check it out if you guys haven't seen the new Army of the Dead Necromancer. But anyways, take care, guys, and I'll catch you on the next video. And I'm signing out. Peace.